It's time for another episode of The Sean Tabbitt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is Graham Cochrane, and we're going to be discussing his new book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, turning your knowledge, passion, and experience into an online income stream in your spare time. Graham, it is truly an honor, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. Glad to be here.
Well, Graham, I'm so excited to talk to you. For folks who follow my show for many years, you'll notice I have kind of an 80-20 rule. 80% of my content tends to focus on Christian books and topics, and the other 20% goes into what I do professionally. I work with authors, helping them to come up with book concepts, get their book in the market, launch, promote marketing, all the things. And so I'm always looking for a handful of books every season that I think are going to aid an author to help them get started promoting a book, launching a book, growing their platform, all these sorts of things. And so that's kind of the why of why we're having this conversation. But before we get to the book, I'd love to kick this off by having you share a bit of the Graham Cochrane origin story. So for somebody meeting you for the first time in our talk today, give them some context. What are a few of the things they need to know about you?
Yeah, what I tell people on an airplane when they ask me what I do is I tell them I make YouTube videos because it's the only thing that their eyes don't glaze over. They go, "Oh, interesting." So, I mean, that's a lot of what I do. But technically, I have a couple of online businesses that I own and run where I'm an educator. And so I have a music background. And so I have my first online business. I started in the global recession in 2009 when I moved to Florida. And as God would have it, we bought our first house, had our first baby, and then lost my second job in the same year. And a lot of people can identify with that in a season we're going through right now where they've lost work or they're in transition and it feels like starting over. And I felt like I hadn't even really started into my career very much. And I was already starting over on food stamps. The kids were on Medicaid. It was just like, what are we doing with our lives kind of thing. And in that soup, I started creating content around in my music background. I have a freelance recording and engineering background, and I was looking for clients. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I start a YouTube channel back in 2009 or a blog and share some of what I'm doing? I mean, that's as far as I understood about online business. I didn't think I was trying to start an online business. Was if I don't share something online, fewer people will find me. I can focus in my town of Tampa, but if I put something on the internet, maybe I could get some more remote client work. And that led me down this crazy path of sharing more content and creating more videos and writing more articles and people actually benefiting from it. And they didn't want to hire me. They just wanted me to keep creating more content. And I was like, that's fun. This is kind of neat. It's like a fun little hobby, but I need to go make money for my family. So is there a way to monetize this? And if so, I'll try it. And if there's not, I got to stop doing it because I got to make money. And that's what kicked me off into a journey of building my first business, The Recording Revolution. I've been doing that since 2009, helping musicians record music at home on a budget. And there's online courses and membership sites and coaching and communities and things like that. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I started formally a coaching business on online business. Everyone kept asking me, how did you make money teaching people about music for a living? That doesn't make any sense. What's the business model? How do I do that with what I'm good at or what I know? And so I've been doing that now, teaching people how to start online businesses for about 4 or 5 years. And that led to the book, which was like, we got to put this in a format that people who aren't looking for this, but they need some alternative way of work, making a living, and what's working for them isn't working anymore, and they need something different. What if they could pick up a book and go, man, there's another path for me to monetize what I know, what I'm good at, and what I love doing?
Well, and indeed, I do agree that it's like we're walking through 2008, 2009 all over again in terms of people facing difficult situations, difficult job losses, economic downturn, you name it. It's a weird time. But one of the things that I think is amazing is so many more people have freedom of location, which we were talking about a little bit before we got into the interview is, I could probably list 10, 15 friends who have moved cross country, who now work from home full time. And again, in the tech and software space where I came up versus where I'm at now in publishing, it's not abnormal to work from home, but for a lot of people, this is the very first time they have that level of freedom. And so I feel like the likelihood of them executing something like what you described in your book, with the extra 2-3 hours a day they might have because they're no longer commuting, it could actually be a reality where before you were, maybe you could listen to podcasts and listen to audiobooks while you were driving, but people have been able to recapture so much of that time. And so, the time is just ideal for what you lay out in the book. Before we get into the content from the book, though, I'd love to have you speak to patience and kind of the idea of being an overnight success. I think we hear a story like yours and we're like, oh, yeah, it's so exciting. We see you've got books and courses and all the things. But it's been a journey and it's been a process to get to this point where everything's established. With doing podcast interviews for the past 10 years, I can say the average overnight success is probably about a 10 to 15-year journey. And you alluded to this earlier in terms of when you're getting out there and getting started, you got to feed your kids, you got to pay your mortgage, you got to do all the things. So there's that challenge of, hey, how do I start making money today? But also at the same time, you have to be patient and put in the work to build the content and do the things that over time scale. So maybe I guess the question I'm trying to ask is kind of that balance. Yes, you need to start making money today, but also it's a process and a journey to get to the place where you have that solid platform and everything's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of this type of business model in a lot of businesses is they take time. And unfortunately, a lot of people are only thinking about starting an online business like the way I teach because they need money now. There's a reason why they're interested in me now, because they just lost their job or something's not working or they have to move because rent's too high and then they have to find a new job. I mean, there's so many factors, right? So the problem is what I teach and what I do doesn't happen very quickly. Now, there are ways to make money faster in the short term. Usually one-on-one coaching is the best way. And I talk about it in the book in terms of, you're going through the process of figuring out what kind of value you could add to people. And then how could you monetize that value? And one way is direct coaching, getting a couple clients. But really what I had to figure out in the dark back in the 2009, 2010, 2011, didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know this was an industry that existed, although there were some people doing it long before I showed up. I had to figure out a way to build an audience and then create something that I could sell to that audience, which is all business is. At the end of the day, I'm just doing it in the digital space. And what I'm selling is an information product as opposed to a physical product. But it is slow. I mean, for us, we were on food stamps for 18 months. I would say from going hard at it, quote unquote, full time. I mean, I spent 32 hours a week. When I wasn't doing client work, but I'd say a solid 20 hours of that week, each week, I was trying to create content and figure out this business. So giving it 20 hours a week minimum took me 2 years to make $60,000 a year, which actually it's not that bad, but it seemed really slow because I made maybe 10,000 in my first year. So imagine working hard every day for a year and you make $10,000. I could have gone to McDonald's and made more money. It makes no sense, but then the beautiful thing about business, and as to your point, overnight success, is it takes a long time before they really are an overnight success because that becomes a momentum thing that you can't manufacture. It just takes a groundwork over a lot of time. The momentum happened for me in year 2 and 3, and then it's really skyrocketed there, and God's done some incredible things, and I'm kind of along for the ride. But what I teach people to do, it is slow, but it's deliberate because you're building something that's scalable. What I love about this kind of business model is that it's not a get rich quick thing, because I hate those because then they get lost quick, like they disappear quick too. So if you build something that's sustainable, then really you can have this longevity of you can have a really consistent, dependable revenue stream that's either your full-time thing or your part-time thing, or it becomes a completely passive thing. And so you can keep your job that you actually really like, but you also just make more money from this other thing that you took the time to build. And so, yeah, it's slow. And I think that's why in this book, I try to be transparent about that. But also I try to give people a vision of what to expect. I love realistic expectations because people get disappointed, Sean, and they quit. And I want them to realize this. If you need something fast, this maybe isn't for you. But if you want something that could change your life, then just be realistic about it. And I'm kind of coaching people off the ledge a lot of times to just stick with it. And over time, watch what God does.
And I have a publishing guy sort of question for you next. I'm always curious when somebody has experience, doing video, courses, public speaking, all the things, packaging up everything you've learned and trying to put it into a book. It's a unique process. It's an interesting challenge. So for you, give me 1 or 2 things you learned in the process of, you were very successful with communicating in these other ways. What was it like to put that into book format?
Man, that's a great question. It was hard. Short answer, hard. With this book, I try to toe the line between inspirational, motivational, and readable. Pick it up, take it on vacation. You're at the beach, you're reading this, oh, this is exciting. This is possible. I like those kind of books because you get a little bit of motivation. but I also wanted it to be like the step-by-step roadmap. I wanted you to actually look at it as like a textbook you could come back to. And like, when I'm ready to build it, oh, I'm in this stage now. So I wanted it to be both didactic, but also light and approachable. Because I know those books that have great information, but they're like a tome. And you're like, I'm not going to read this. Or I know the books that are like inspiring, but there's no meat. And so now what do? I still don't know what to do. I know maybe the opportunity about it. I don't know what to do. And so that was hard for me to balance that. I think I'll say I'm grateful for having taught it outside of the book first. It wasn't just conceptual knowledge. This is like working knowledge. And I've had to teach this in YouTube videos, on webinars, in courses, one-on-one with people. So I've learned kind of maybe the pieces to go big on and the pieces to leave out. And then having great editors. I mean, I really was helpful to have editors at the publishing company to help me think through, hey, this is getting a little in the weeds, and I know I don't know this world, but is there a way we could, tighten this up a bit? Or actually, you glossed over this in this section. You like went so fast because you were trying to keep it light. Like, I think this needs a bit more explanation. And that was just helpful to have another set of ears to say, from your perspective, since you don't know my business model or what I do, is this too much, too little? And that was helpful because I don't know. I'm too close to it.
Well, and I think that's one thing that is often different in the consulting world and kind of the business professional speaking world. I've interviewed like Jay Baer and Mark Schaefer and others in this space, and they'll talk about where, and this may be examples that are pre-pandemic, they'll hit the road for a year and they'll teach a message, they'll work out the kinks for kind of what they're grooving on, what they're excited about, and then they'll write the book after the fact, after they've seen how the audience responds and they understand, okay, here's how I wasn't communicating effectively at first. So you kind of did that same thing just through your courses and how you're communicating with and interacting with your customers. And so I love that. That's probably something that's in my experience is unique in more of the business space versus in the space I work in professionally. You tend to just, hey, I feel like this is a message people need. I'm going to write it. I love that model of getting kind of live feedback, if you will, from your customers and potential customers to write exactly the book that they're looking for. I always think that's a brilliant way to go if that works in your particular context and model. I think the next place I'd love to go is talking about overcoming imposter syndrome. I feel like one of the challenges people have early on a journey like yours is they struggle with this idea of, they are like, am I really an expert? Because to you, what you know is normal. And you're just like, well, this is just normal stuff. Doesn't everybody know this? The reality is everybody doesn't know it. And you just have to be enough smarter than the person you're helping and coaching to get them further down the path, if you will. So for you, how is that a challenge at first? Like, how is that a challenge for the people that you work with to overcome imposter syndrome? Because it's a real thing that holds people back for a long time.
Yeah, this is maybe the issue. I mean, the Journal of Behavioral Science did a study on working professionals, and they found that 70% of all working professionals struggle with what they call imposter syndrome, the imposter phenomenon is what they called it. And that included marketing executives, doctors, lawyers, 70%. And then I think the other 30% were just lying. But, it's like everyone struggles with this. And why is that? It doesn't matter how much expertise you have, I think is the point. You still feel like you're about to be found out, right? Someone's going to discover that you're just a normal person. And guess what? You are. That's liberating, but also you're uniquely gifted and wired and placed where you're placed by God to do what you're called to do. So I think we all struggle with it. And part of the problem is, especially when it comes to what I'm teaching, which is like educating, starting a YouTube channel and like saying, I'm going to teach you how to speak a foreign language or manage your finances or lose weight. You feel like, who am I to do this? Why should somebody listen to me? I must have to have some kind of credentials or be an expert for them to pay attention to me and to know that I'm worth listening to. So part of the problem there is it's just a narcissistic conversation. We're just so focused on ourselves. Like, am I good enough to do this? Am I, and so we're not even thinking about the other people. We're not thinking about service. We're thinking about ourselves, and we're like insecure and fearful. It's really a self-focused, self-obsessed way to think. Like, am I an expert enough? Really what you should be thinking about is, could I help somebody? Can I help somebody? To your point, instead of looking at like maybe the experts that we respect, look at the other people not as far along as you are that need help. And we know this maybe in our smaller circles of life, like in our church or friends or family, like the people that call us up for help, like, hey, Sean, can you help me with this thing? What's the thing people call you up or text you or always asking you for your advice on? They respect you because they know you've had a little bit of success in that area more than they have. And they just want to know, like, what should I be thinking about? What am I missing? And so you're pulling those type of people along, and then you just extrapolate that out to the internet. There's thousands and thousands more of those people, like your friends and family, that need to be pulled a little bit further along. And so all we're doing is trying to get over the fact that it's not about us and we're not trying to become an expert. Expertise is overrated. What people want are results. They want help. And can you help them? And if you put helpful material out there that gets them a little bit closer to where they're trying to go, they will then view you as a reliable, trusted source. And so for me, when I started the recording revolution, I knew a lot about recording music because that's what I was interested in and that's what I studied and went to school for. But I didn't think I was someone to teach it. And that was like my professors or someone who has a Grammy Award or whose clients are very famous musicians. All my clients were indie artists that you've never heard of. So I thought, who am I to teach recording music? Why would somebody listen and learn it from me? And once I started publishing material for fun, hoping it would lead me to clients, and people were like, this was helpful. No one's explained this like you have. I was like, what? And then they would go do what I would tell them to do, and it would work for their music. They'd come back and be like, well, that worked. And now they're hooked. Now I am an expert in their eyes because they did something I suggested and it worked. And then it snowballs from there. So I struggled with it, past tense, and I struggle with it, present tense, because I'm a human being. And every time I publish something, I wonder, is this video, like, are they going to find out that I'm just a guy? You know, they're going to find out that I'm no one special? Because that's how I feel. But I just try to ignore my own fears and my own self issues and focus on who could I help today. And if I don't show up and publish some material today, don't make a video, don't email my list, I'm punishing somebody by not helping them get a little bit further on in their journey. And that's all people are looking for, is a little bit of transformation.
Next, I'd love to have you speak to finding that balance of that you're the guide and not the hero. I think one of the challenges we can face early on is we're like, oh man, I got to like double and triple down and telling about why I'm successful and how I've done so many great things because that's the only way you're going to believe me. But yet when you put yourself up as the hero and you don't come in as the guide, that's really off-putting to people. You wouldn't think it would work that way, but as you said earlier, people are coming to you for solutions. You know, they're looking for the hole in the wall so they can hang the shelf. That's why they want to buy the drill that you might be offering. But talk to us a little bit about that balance, because I feel like people they want to project themselves as the hero, but they need to come in as the guide. That's something many of us have to learn along the journey after hitting our head a few times.
Oh yeah, you hit it on the head. I mean, Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, is phenomenal, and it really breaks that process down. I mean, you got to think, again, being the hero, and this is common. Okay, I'm going to create a website for my brand or for my company or on my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk about how awesome I am so that people will listen to me. Because again, we're building that off of a faulty assumption that people are looking for really credible people to learn from. Nobody's thinking about you. Like, nobody cares about you. They care about themselves. And I think that's such a liberating thing to learn. Like, nobody cares about me. They care about themselves. So if I wanted to be successful, I need to focus on them and speak to them about themselves. And so we're just looking for guides, to your point. We're looking for help. We all think we're the hero of our story, and we all need someone to help get us to the next level of whatever journey we're on. And so if I were to go to two people's websites or two people's Instagram accounts or two people's YouTube channels, and both are teaching me how to lose weight, and one is just talking about how they've worked with the best celebrities in the world and they've gotten them all in shape and how great they are and how everyone who's famous comes to them and how they got this award as the top trainer in LA for whatever. And then the other person talks about, have you tried like starving yourself and you're still not losing weight? Like, have you tried this and it's not working? Do you feel ashamed of this or that? And they're just listing like everything I think about and all my I don't even know who they are yet. They're talking about me. They're reading my mail. I'm going to be like, I'm drawn into the next thing. And then they say, what if there was like, I found a better way to help you do whatever. Try it out here. Like, I don't even know their name yet. I mean, I have students, that's what happens to me. They don't even know my name. They don't even know how to spell it. They don't care about my name because they're just drawn in by what I'm talking about because I'm talking to them about their problem. And so when you position yourself as the guide, you don't need to get any credit. You don't need to win, because you actually win by helping them win, because they'll buy your product, they'll sing your praises. And it's just a flip of a switch in terms of what you realize your role is. Every good business knows that their role is to help their customers succeed or have the transformation they want. And they're willing to play the side gig of being the guide. But the guides are in business forever, right? Because every one of their customers is a hero on a journey. It's the businesses that are like, look at me, I'm so great. Or the individual coaches or leaders that look at me, I'm so great, that nobody cares about. Because I mean, I think about that with regular friends. Do you have friends that talk about how great they are and talk about their accomplishments? They're probably not your favorite friend. If you have a friend who's just like, hey, how are you? How could I help you? What are you struggling with? that kind of person is very magnetic because they're more interested in you than they are themselves. And that's all we're doing in business.
Well, I think that's a good check, as you're creating content to go, okay, check this one off. Am I talking about myself, or am I talking about my customer? Am I talking to the audience in a way that we're addressing things that they're actually concerned about and worrying about? Just a quick check when you're making stuff. I think that can save you a lot of hassle of like, why isn't my content hitting? In terms of like, where do we put our efforts today? On the one hand, like back when you started out, we were all into blogging, and that was huge back then. And then we all got into podcasting, and more people got into podcasting during the downturn through the pandemic. Now, video is what's doing really great right now in terms of algorithms. And so, for somebody coming into this and like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to put my focus. Is it, do I need a blog? Do a podcast? Do I do video? What social media accounts do I get on? Do I need to have an email list? All the things. And so, for somebody starting out, how do they decide where to put their focus? And is one area more or less effective depending on the space you're trying to play in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's the short answer. It depends. My pointed answer is understand what the business model is here, right? You need to be discovered online. So any business needs to be discovered. Otherwise, nobody knows about you. So how can we need to get discovered? And then we need to build our own audience of people that we can follow up with and offer our products. And then we need products. It's like functionally the three things you need. And so on the discoverability side of things, one way is just to run ads. Like you can run ads and then people, they discover your things through your ads and they click on your thing and they buy your thing. That's like the shortcut in a way. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it that I teach, that I think is much more effective for a lot of reasons, is creating content. The reason why is if it's the right kind of content, it will be discoverable, which I'll get to in a second. And two, it allows you to like add value for free so they can test drive your material, which builds know, like, and trust. And then you have a really warm, targeted group of people that then you could sell to, and you're going to convert a lot higher. So the way to do it all in one is to create evergreen content that's discoverable. So what's a piece of content that you could make that will always show up somewhere, somehow? Probably something that's going to show up in a Google search or a YouTube search, because those are the two most powerful search engines on the planet. And that's what YouTube is, by the way, is a search engine. So the short answer is, if I had to pick something, it would be YouTube videos, only because it's a better chance of being discovered. If I do a podcast, I would want to have a blog attached to it where I could have some written content to substantiate that podcast so that I have a chance of Google finding my podcast episode. Because inside the Apple Podcast app or Spotify, it's a little bit of a closed loop right now. There is some searchability, but not as much as being on a blog post or on a YouTube page. Whereas social media, that gets even further away from the discoverability thing. There's a lot of attention on social media like TikTok or Instagram because so many people can become stars and it can become viral. It's very hard to manufacture virality on those platforms. When it happens, yes, your reach will be huge, but that's a small few people at the top of the pyramid. And when you post a piece of content there, it disappears. It's gone after 24 hours, unless it just gets picked up and spun around forever. Whereas if you post a video on YouTube, I have videos that I filmed 7 years ago that are still showing up on the first page of YouTube results today, giving me leads today. And that's the epitome of efficiency, is create a piece of content once, get leads forever. So that's what I would focus on, is YouTube, blog second, podcast third, or wrap it all together. I do all three in one. I do a video podcast that's uploaded to YouTube. The audio is uploaded to podcast apps. And then I have a blog post where it embeds the video, has a little bit of written description. You could do a full transcript if you want. Kill three birds with one stone.
Well, the thing, especially with YouTube content, is you can have something that you put out and it doesn't hit. And, 8-9 months later, all of a sudden the algorithm picks up, something shifts, and that piece of content can go viral. One of our craziest experiences last year is we did an interview with an author, and it didn't really do a whole lot. And then, 8-9 months down the road, that video goes viral. It's viewed by like 2.5 million people. And we sold like 5,000-6,000 copies of that guy's book. I mean, I do work for a publisher, so that's kind of my example. But so in terms of that content, long term, you put stuff out there and it doesn't hit right away. But over time, it'll keep bringing you leads. It'll keep selling books. It'll, all the things. And so kind of that patience and just building the platform, all of those pieces of content are gateways into your ecosystem or into your world. And so a lot of it is just getting it out there, I like what you said in terms of a podcast, linking it back to a blog or a website. Maybe you have for each episode, you create a post with show notes, or if you want to go the extra step in actually transcribing your episode, that's a little bit more complicated, although very much you can automate that today in a way that you couldn't 6 years ago very easily. But to make your podcast content that much more discoverable by Google, adding transcriptions of your episode would certainly be a huge help. I think the place I'd love to go next is just to talk about pricing for our products. That imposter syndrome piece, I feel like that's a huge struggle. The next piece is, how do I put a price on what I'm selling? We tend to want to undervalue things. Again, I feel like that's like the offshoot of imposter syndrome. Is there a sweet spot or a good price point to start with? Because if you underprice something, that's going to give you a totally different kind of client base than if you price more, a little bit higher. You don't want to overprice. So is there a good in between when you're starting out?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on what you're selling. In what I'm teaching people, it's like you're selling knowledge, but you're packaging it ideally in a video course online, which can convey a lot more value than, let's say, a book. So I got a book and it's going to be $25 book. And if you're like, that's the price point I'm just so anchored at, like, how could I sell information for more than $25? Like, if that's what people are expecting with the book. And that's a limitation of the format. There's an accepted format in books, and that's, $20 for a book, $15 for a book. If you take the same material and teach it in an online video course, easily that material is worth $50 to $200 easily. And depending on the niche you're in, like if I'm teaching online business, I can sell the same material for $500 to $1,000 or $2,000 because it's anchored to something different, which would be either like a university class, right? Where you go to a class for a whole semester, you're working through, it's not just reading a book, or you're anchoring it to one-on-one coaching with someone. So like, if I were to come work with you directly and help you get this transformation, what would that cost? We worked together for 6 weeks and we had a call every week. Would that be $500? Would it be $1,000? Like, what would it be to help you get results? Well, you can't work with me directly, but functionally I'm speaking to you. There's downloadables. It's a video. You can ask questions and I can answer them later inside the app using a tool like Kajabi or whatever it is. That's easily worth $100. That's easily worth $200. And so it depends on what you're anchoring it to. So I've found you don't want to sink below $50 when you can avoid it, because it's just someone who's looking for, they just want the book. They just want something quick. They're going to complain a lot. They don't really want to invest because they're not invested in it. If you sell something for more than $200, $300, it takes a little bit more sales prowess to make that conversion. So, I like selling for as expensive as possible because you get really high quality customers, but for minimal effort, maximum profitability. And I think Tim Ferriss talks about this too in the 4-Hour Work Week, is that $50 to $200 range becomes like a quick, like they could swipe their card and be like, I see the transformation that promises, that seems reasonable. I'll go for that. So I like to stay in that range for most businesses that are non-business to business related.
Yeah, when you think about that price point, $50 to $200, we can drop that on a nice dinner. It's nothing to go to Costco or the store and just spend $300 to $500 easily. So $50 to $200 in today's economy really isn't as much as you think it is to ask, especially if you have niche content or things that is very high value. We tend to undervalue things, and so if you have something that meets an extreme need in a unique space, it's okay to have a premium price point, because if you're offering something that's very unique that isn't quite available anywhere else, or it solves this massive problem, it's okay to put a high value on that, because you're going to attract those sorts of customers who they're going to value that and they're going to want to pay that price point. So moral of the story is, be careful not to underprice. I feel like people don't tend to lean towards overpricing, but often will underprice whatever it has to be. And especially like you held up your book. If you have a book, think of that as the gateway to your course. It's super easy to get out and get people to support and buy your book and to promote that. Low risk, low cost of entry. But if you're going to drop $25 and you read Graham's book and you go, man, I need more. I want to, this was helpful and it got me started, but I want to go deeper. It's a logical leap to jump into. I bet this guy has a course. And so, I don't mean to ever trivialize somebody's book, because it's so much work to put a book together and get it to market. But it's kind of like a big shiny business card. It's a proof of concept and it shows that you're capable of doing something special, putting a book together and getting it out there. That's a journey in and of itself. But a book can be a great course magnet or lead magnet. It feels weird. It's like a paid lead magnet to your course. So not that you have to have a book to start out before you do a course, but a book can be a great thing to have just to help you get credibility and a way to earn some money while getting awareness for your expertise and your content. I think the place I'd like to go as we kind of land the interview is to talk a little bit about, or have you talk a little bit about kind of tools and automation. When we're starting out, we want to bootstrap things. We're like, I can get this free thing and this $25 or $50 thing over there. Just in terms of planning and moving forward, that balance of finding the right tools, automation, being willing to spend money when it makes sense. Because the reality is you will quickly outgrow the limitations of your free tools if you try to go only that route. So what's a good balance in there for somebody who's in that first year of their journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think do whatever you got to do. So if you have to use free tools, by all means do. I started with less than $50, my first business, and was able to turn it into $1 million a year business. And that was like $8 a month web hosting on GoDaddy, a free MailChimp account for up to your first 2,000 email subscribers, a PayPal link, which was free. YouTube was free. And then I bought a domain name. I mean, it was like maybe $25 out the door to get started. So if that's what you have to do, that's what I did. And I hate spending money I don't need. I try to keep my profit margins high, and I just want to spend as little as possible in my business, partially because I'm a weirdo and I just want to see what does it actually take. But then if I have the luxury of like, if this would make my life easier or actually help me make more money, then yeah, I'll invest in it. These days, there's tools that are just so fabulous that didn't exist 13 years ago when I got started. I had to have a WordPress site with, plugins and other things talking to each other, and I didn't know anything about coding. Now you have tools like Kajabi, which kind of pioneered this all-in-one platform for people that are doing exactly this. Like you want to sell a course or you're a coach online, they got smart and created one login, one tool that allows you to host your course and your website and do webinars and do your email marketing and do landing pages, everything you can imagine. Build private communities so they don't have to be on a Facebook group. Like it can host everything inside of one thing, and it's not free and it's not super cheap, but out the door max, you're spending $150 a month to run your entire business. And so eventually you're going to upgrade into something like that once you start making any realm of money, because it makes your life so much easier. It makes your brand look so much more professional for the outside and your customer base, for your user experience. And then you get a tech team running it for you where you can have chat support and you don't have to like keep a website up and running or get hacked or any of that kind of stuff. So I would say there's other competitors too to Kajabi who've come out like any other industry when there's someone who's an innovator, and then other people try to undercut it and to be a cheaper version. And those are great alternatives too. If you don't need all the features that Kajabi has, very few of them have the full feature set Kajabi has. So I'm a huge Kajabi fan. I use it for both of my businesses and I teach my students to use it. But I don't care what you use, because you're going to make money on any of the platforms if you're doing the right stuff. But always try to keep things as simple as possible. Low cost for sure, and then simple as possible. Because I find that simplicity almost trumps low cost at the end of the day, because it's mental space, it's being able to stay nimble, be able to stay innovative. And when you're not dealing with the tech, you can just focus on creating products that sell and creating content that connects with you with more people.
Yeah, clearly you don't want to spend beyond what your means are early on in the journey. You don't want to start at a deficit, but being willing, or I would say review maybe quarterly or at least once a year to go, okay, am I still trying to bootstrap this too hard? Could I simply, move into a tool that is gonna it's gonna cost me a little more, but it's gonna save me so much other time that I can invest elsewhere? Because early on, when we're starting out, we don't have a lot of clients. Our time may not be worth as much, but later, as we have other high value things we can be doing, still bootstrapping like it's month one of our process doesn't make any sense. So my encouragement would be to just set some milestone points in your calendar throughout the year. Where you're like, okay, I need to review my structure, my tools, make sure I'm not wasting time or wasting money, and find that balance in there. Through the years, I've come to love AppSumo. I've subscribed to their email list. I bought a scheduling tool off there this morning to replace Calendly, just because the lifetime deal was better than $150 a month, $29 for a lifetime subscription. So something like there places like AppSumo that are promoting tools. Sometimes you can get a good lead on a lower cost tool that does the same thing as something that might cost you $500 to $1,000 a year. So that's saved me tons of money through the years. In terms of reader takeaway, somebody takes the time, they read through the whole book. Like for you, what does success look like for you as the author? How do you hope you've challenged them? How do you hope they're thinking differently on the other side of that journey, if there's one takeaway you hope every person discovers in your book, what is that?
Yeah, very simple. It's that you're sitting on a gold mine. Like you have something super valuable inside of you. You just need to learn how to get it out and market it and monetize it. And don't be scared of those things if you don't understand the how. There's a million ways to do it. I represent a lot of them in the book and show a lot of them, but they can be beyond what we cover in the book. But there's something that you have, your knowledge, your experience, the way you see the world, your skill set, your passions, that is valuable to the right person. And so you have an opportunity that you're sitting on, and that's exciting.
And Graham, in terms of the listeners and viewers connecting with you, finding out more about the book, finding out more about all the other things you have going on, where do we discover you on the web?
Yeah, the book's called How to Get Paid for What You Know. It's everywhere books are sold. But you can follow me over at grahamcochrane.com. And if you go to grahamcochrane.com/gift, there's a free 45-minute workshop there that kind of pulls the curtain back on the whole business model that I teach in the book. If you like it visually, you can sort of dive in there and then like have a tool set to go launch your business from there.
And like we do with every episode, we'll make it easy. We'll have links in the show notes to Graham's website, as well as a link to where you can buy your very own copy of his brand new book. It's time to bring this episode of the Sean Tabbitt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Graham Cochrane. Once again, our book today was How to Get Paid for What You Know, turning your knowledge, passion, and experience into an online income stream in your spare time. And Graham, I want to say thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Sean.